Hey, how's it going, everybody? So today we're diving right back into doing resin crystals, one of my favorite things to do, except this time they're going to be a lot smaller. I'm just doing small pendants. I'm going to be doing some pendulums, some necklaces, just a little bit of jewelry making today. And in these crystals I'm going to be using, as usual, dried flowers and plants and whatever I've collected over the past few weeks, which has been so much stuff. I feel so rich in all the colors and textures that I have in my collection right now. It's pretty overwhelming and I can't wait to show you. So these molds just came in the mail a few days ago. You can't really see it until I use them, but we're going to be testing all of these out today. You can see that they're like little geometric molds. So we're gonna give each one of them a shot and then string them up on some chains, and they're gonna be my new decorations for inside my van. If these turn out nicely, they can definitely be a new prototype for a product in my shop. That would be so fun, but for now I just want to make these ones for myself. I'm also going to be pouring this resin diamond, so that'll be pretty fun too. And if you want to make any of this stuff yourself, I'm going to put all the links to all the molds and materials that I used down in the description, just in case you want to check that out. So I start this project just like I start all my other projects. I spread out all of the materials that I have right now up in front of me and just pick out my favorite colors or whatever I'm feeling for that day. I have tons of different textures to pick from, tons of different sizes and colors, so sometimes it's hard to choose, and we are working in really small molds today, so I suspect that we're gonna have to crumple up a few petals just to get a really good pigment and not get too complicated with it since they're so tiny. Maybe 1 to 2 colors each pendant, we'll see. And these are some of the most recent finds that I have. I just found them growing on the side of the road. These beautiful bell flowers, I think they might be called. Then I mix up a small batch of resin and do a drop of resin in each mold just to prep them for some materials. I start off with a quartz crystal wrapped in some copper wire and shove in a few flowers, really similar to my older, larger crystals, but a very simple and minimalist version of that. Then I use more of the same pink flowers, blue flowers, yellow flowers, all the primary colors and all of my favorite colors. It turns out I ended up pouring a little bit too much resin, so I added on the hand mold that I used in my last video. I threw in an assortment of colors and flowers into that one and decided that I would also turn this into a pendulum since it's not too big and it's one of my favorite molds so far anyways. I add bits of gold leaf here and there to some of the crystals, and then I wait about 6 hours for the first layer of resin to set, so it's hard enough for me to add in a top coat that will just seal everything in there and just fill up the molds completely. So I unmolded the hand mold to add a top coat of resin onto it just to give it a really shiny texture, because without it, once it comes right out of the mold, it kind of has this murky matte texture to it. So I mix a minimum amount of resin, which means I get to pour another pendant, which I just fill with a bunch of carnation petals, and then another hand because I didn't know what else to do. So the flowers that I used in these pieces are pretty common and basically all wild flowers. So for the yellow, I used a lot of the classic dandelions, and the blue are these violets that I had growing in my front lawn. I wish I knew the name of these pink flowers. I'm gonna try looking that up, but I have so many of them and they're really pigmented, so I love those. I used a lot of those. For the green, I used a lot of fern, and then I used some blue lavender flowers and some carnation petals. For these pendants, I tried to only use 1 or 2 colors for each composition. I tried to pair colors that looked really nicely together, like blue and yellow, and I love using green as a neutral color that kind of gives off a really strong feeling of nature, so I think I can add green with really bright, crazy colors like pink, and I think that turns out really well. In one pink crystal, I just added some gold leaf, and the hand being the exception where I put in a lot of different colors. But again, green as a very neutral. I used some white lilac and then some blue, violets, and pink flowers as well. So just two main bright colors and then just some supporting neutrals. Next, I get out my handheld Dremel to sand down any of the pointier edges and get rid of any of the excess resin that was flowing over while it was curing. A really helpful tool that I like to use while I'm doing the sanding is a nice soft bristled brush. This white dust from the resin gets everywhere, and it's just really useful to have a brush that can get into all of those crevices and just make sure that it's completely dust free before you need to add another coat of resin, or if you need to touch up any other areas of resin, you don't want it to get trapped under the resin because then it doesn't look good at all. So you want to make sure you're dusting it all away, or even using some rubbing alcohol to get any of the excess dust out of there. And then I try and decide on some of the compositions that I want to do with these pendulums. I want to do some where there are two attached crystals along the chain, and so I wanted to pair them together perfectly, and some were really similar color palettes, so that's basically how I decided to do that. So I used my drill to make a bunch of holes on either ends, and I figured out which ones I was pairing together to know where I'm going to put each of the holes. And then I got out all of my jewelry making supplies, which includes my pliers, all of these jump ring clasps, all of the lobster clasps, and all the things that I needed to attach everything together properly. I'm pretty new with all this jewelry making stuff, so I'm still learning a lot, and it doesn't look the best, but this was definitely a good practice round for that. I really like all this extra time that I get to spend with my resin crystals. I get to admire everything that's going on in there and just really finesse it with all these accents of silver. I think I decided that the quartz wrapped in copper was my favorite pendant, and I definitely want to go back to this mold many more times. I think it's a really good size for a keychain perhaps, but definitely these pendulums and necklaces, so I'm excited to see what else I can try with that one. But other than that, I really love the ones that we got to pair together. These small crystals are really cute, but I don't see that many uses to it besides them being an accent piece to other resin crystals like I used in this one. Let me know what you guys think about these, and if you guys have a favorite, or if I should make more of a certain one, or explore a little bit more in any certain ways. My crystal mold collection is definitely becoming very vast at this point. I have a lot of sizes and a lot of ranges, and maybe I should just show you all of them all together. A super mega resin crystal video. Sounds like a dream to me, honestly. I just love using these crystals to decorate my van. I think they reflect light inside my van really nicely and are just so pretty to look at. Plus, they're made with nature, which is just the perfect thing to be reminded of all the time. Here I'm screwing in one of the curtain rods that I have for my van into the siding of my van. This just gives me a lot of room to make a lot more pendants and display as much as I want to. I thought it would be a really cute addition since I consider this wall to be my aesthetic, artful wall.